Welcome to Art School's No More webinar series, where we're providing you information on vital topics, current projects, and trends for leaders in art schools. Today we're presenting a part 3 of a series with the Association of Independent Colleges of Art and Design. So we were with you in the fall helping you get ready to apply. Then we visited you to make sure you did apply and you covered all your bases. And this third part is what's next. It's spring and decision time. Today, Leanne Adams, the Assistant Director of Programs and Operations with AICAD, is here to talk to us exactly about what to do. And I'm your host, Christy Calloway with Art Schools Network. I'm the Executive Director. Today, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box or the question box, and we'll respond to them live or in a follow-up email. This recording will be available on our website along with the PowerPoint, so don't worry if you have to check out early because the bell rang. Again, I'm Christy Calloway, the host for Art Schools Network's webinar series, and we're here to bring you relevant information. Today, we are looking at what our members need. Across our membership, the majority are arts high schools, and then the second tier is nonprofit colleges and conservatories. So it's very important that we look at this pipeline and provide a feeding area for our members. Today, again, we're looking at preparing students for what's next. Right now, we represent most states across the United States, a few provinces in Canada and the UK and Singapore. But what's important to all of these locations, and even the ones not represented, but we're always recruiting, is how to get into your art and design school, and then how to make a decision once you've been accepted or denied. What are your options? We have the perfect guest expert, Miss Leanne Adams. Again, she's the Assistant Director of Programs and Operations at AICAD, and she's been there for a couple of years. What's exciting is she's about to roll out to us some of the recent happenings and opportunities and resources and tools for you year-round. Go ahead and tell us, and Leanne, about your organization. I know you've been a member for a long time of our association. You've been a presenter at our conference. You constantly provide generous resources to our members. You provide online portfolio reviews for students at no cost. There's really just so much that you do, and I don't think people know enough about it. So I want you to walk us through where you are today. Leanne, take it away.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for having me, Christy, and everyone who was able to attend today. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to just draw everyone's attention to the fact that AICAD just recently has undergone a rebranding. So this is our new logo. So when you see this, or various iterations of this, it is, in fact, AICAD. Nothing has changed about us except for our lovely logo. And to answer your question, Christy, I'm going to switch slides here. Here is a snapshot of our membership, and AICAD is a membership organization made up of the 42 private, nonprofit, 4-year BFA and or MFA degree granting specialized art and design schools. So you can see all of our schools here. We actually have 4 schools located in Canada. The rest of the schools are located in the United States, and we're pretty spread out across the country. And our schools offer degrees in over 50 specialized areas of study in art and design. And AICAD schools are all accredited by NASAD, which is the National Association of Schools of Art and Design. It's the major accrediting body, and the appropriate regional accrediting agency in that school's region. So they're all dual accredited. And students at AICAD schools follow a very rigorous course of study by earning a minimum of 60 studio credits. So that's a majority of the time is delving deep into an area of study. And then the remaining credits are usually in the liberal arts. So students will study history, art history, English, creative writing, the social sciences, and these subjects really inform the creative practice, and it guarantees a well-rounded degree. Faculty at AICAD schools are highly trained. Many are working professionally in the areas they teach. And AICAD students represent 50 U.S. states and countries on every continent, and as of 2015, 19% of first-time, full-time undergrads were international students. It's pretty impressive. So I want to jump into the subject matter for today, but before I do that, I want to go into a few new, well actually all new, we completely redesigned and redeveloped our website. I'm happy to say that the AICAD website is now optimized for mobile devices, so you can pull up our site anywhere on a mobile phone, on a tablet, and a ton of new features on the new site. We've increased our resources for students, parents, and art teachers.
I love that you've funneled all of your wonderful resources to your 3 target audiences of who the consumers are. So wonderful.
Exactly. Yeah, we really refined things. We listened to the feedback from our audience, and we wanted to be a little bit more clear about what we offer and what we do. For students, you'll find additional resources around application preparation, including portfolio development resources. And Christy, you mentioned our portfolio development slide room site, where students grades 9 through 12 and prospective transfer applicants can actually upload their portfolio for free and get informal portfolio advisement from admissions counselors at all of our schools. Also on the website for students, we have a listing of portfolio day events and pre-college programs. And you can actually search for pre-college programs across all AICAD institutions, which is kind of a nice feature. For teachers, we have many resources for the art classroom, professional development, including a list of programs for educators at AICAD schools, and search listing for low residency and online master's programs at AICAD schools, which can be helpful for art teachers. For parents, we have a number of different resources, including lots of information on the value of an art and design education and the return on investment for sending your child to an art and design school, and many financial aid resources on the site as well. I'm going to take you to the next slide.
That's fantastic to demonstrate what the actual salaries are compared to the myths, and it's so wonderful to have evidence to illustrate to parents where recent graduates are going and how much money they're making and the career trajectory they have ahead of them.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to this next slide. Our enhanced search features is some of the best improvements, in my opinion, that we've made to the site. You can actually go to our website and discover schools much more easily across the AICAD membership. You can search by a number of different criteria, as you see at the top. You can browse schools by location, by size, by degree, and by region. You can also discover programs of study. So you can do a search, you can browse, and then when you click on a program of study to investigate it further, it will take you into an in-depth page featuring a gallery of student artwork. So right here you see on the left-hand side of the slide the illustration page. You'll also see related alumni stories, so you can actually read about the career trajectories of alumni who have actually majored in illustration to see what they're doing now, and then see a listing of all of the AICAD schools in the membership that offer illustration as a major. Another thing not featured here on this slide, what many find to be a very useful tool are the AICAD school profiles. So you can actually click into a school page on the site and view a detailed school profile that includes information on enrollment, ethnicity, student-to-faculty ratio, graduation rates, tuition, and these are great to print if you want to compare multiple schools. It's easy to do that. So I'm going to move into the meat of my presentation, Christy. Admitted students. First of all, congratulations. This is pretty big. Most importantly, I want everyone to realize that the matriculation deadline across all AICAD schools is May 1st, and it's very important that deposits are received by this date. So students should send in their deposit to hold a spot. The deposit is usually non-refundable, but can be applied to the first tuition bill. And I always recommend, if a student is not sure where they want to attend, if they can afford it, put their matriculation fee in at a couple of different schools just to keep their options open. If they can't decide before that May 1st deadline, this will ensure that their spot is held at all of those schools until they make their decision. Option to defer. Some students want to take a year to do a year of service, maybe AmeriCorps. Maybe they'd like to take a year off in between high school and college. This is an option.
That is such a trend we're seeing. We're calling it the gap year. Is that what you guys are referring to it as?
Yeah, some students do call it a gap year, and some of our institutions do allow this. Some of them do not. So my advice is to not assume that this is the case and to actually contact the admissions office to be sure that it is. Yeah, and you still might have to put in your deposit to hold your spot even if you are deferring. So make sure you work out the details on that. Second most important item I want to cover here for admitted students is to contact the financial aid office about your financial aid award. In some cases, financial aid awards are actually sent separately from the acceptance package. So it's important, even if you get your acceptance package and there's no information about financial aid, don't just assume that you didn't get financial aid. Make sure to put a call in to the financial aid office. I know you know this, Christy, but some of the new audience members don't. I have a background in admissions, and so many times I would get phone calls from students, oh, I didn't get any financial aid, what happened? And lo and behold, it turns out they never filed the FAFSA, which is a free application for federal student aid. And this form actually needs to be completed to be considered for any federal financial aid.
So
and then there's
no matter what, no matter what.
Exactly, yeah. So it's really important that you call, even if you have forgotten to file this form, it's still not too late. You know, your package will be considered in light of available resources even when filing at that late date, but at least you have a chance to receive something. And again, scholarship awards, they might come with the acceptance letter. They might come separately. So it's just a good idea to put a call in once you get your package. Our schools offer a number of resources on their websites for calculating net price. Some of our schools have right in the admissions section or financial aid section of their website a net price tuition calculator. And students can actually factor in tuition, room and board, and art supplies, which is kind of a big one that everyone forgets about, to see how much their net price will be. And just because you're admitted and it's late into the school year, it's not too late to explore other scholarship opportunities. And we recommend that students explore local scholarship options, consider scholarships offered by professional, community, or religious organizations. There are a ton of resources on the AICAD website, and if students want to dial back, they can actually look at the last ASN AICAD webinar where I talked in depth about some of the financial aid resources offered on our website, good tools to help you sort through that. So it's definitely not too late to keep looking. Housing.
That's fantastic that you're able to figure everything out. There are no surprises. It's just a little visit to website, go through a calculator. You just have to be persistent.
Exactly. Housing. So housing at AICAD schools can tend to go quickly. There's definitely limited space. Some of our institutions have a mandatory housing requirement for first-year students. Whatever the case may be, students definitely want to get their housing application and fee, if there is one, in immediately, if they'd like to be considered or if they want to guarantee a spot. Usually the housing information will come with the student's acceptance package and everything will be laid out right there. Also, some of our schools have a required meal plan, and you'll be able to choose, or students will be able to choose from a variety of different meal plans. So all of that will be in the acceptance package as well, and it's good to go through that and make some decisions immediately and not to let it sit until September. Submitting final transcripts. So students actually have to confirm that they graduated and verify their high school graduation. So sending in the final transcripts is necessary. And laptop requirements. Some of our schools do, in fact, have a laptop requirement. And so we usually tell students to hold off on purchasing a computer until they know for sure what their school or intended school's requirements are for a laptop. Some schools or majors have very specific laptop requirements, so it's best to hold off until you know what those are. And then in many cases, if you're required to purchase a laptop, you'll be able to purchase one through the school at a very deep educational discount, and you may even be able to finance the cost of the computer right through the school. So that's definitely something, yeah, it's definitely something that students will want to take advantage of. Oh, it looks like I skipped over the transferring of advanced placement credit. I know I touched on this during the last webinar, but just to kind of reiterate, some AICAD schools grant credit based on AP exams of the College Board, and minimum scores, it's usually a 5, may be used as 3 semester credits towards your education at an AICAD school. So if you are planning to transfer AP Art History or English, usually the studio credits aren't acceptable. But for English and Art History, anything in the liberal arts, you might be able to transfer that credit. And I always suggest contacting the Office of the Liberal Arts once you've been admitted, just to find out how you can facilitate the transfer of those credits. International students. So this is the time if you have international students, they'll need to submit their paperwork for the visa and I-20. And usually that paperwork, although all schools are a little bit different, consists of a declaration of finance, a bank statement, copy of a passport, and any other documentation for the I-20 and the visa process. And this can be a somewhat daunting and confusing thing to walk students through. And I recommend the students contact the Office of International Affairs at the college. Usually there is staff or an entire office dedicated to this to help your students through this process. So another important thing to do for admitted students is connect. All of our institutions offer open houses. Some of them are called open houses. Some of them are called admitted student events. And I'm actually going to play this. It's a little slideshow of the open house event last year at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. And I'll play this while I talk. But open house is really a great time for admitted students to get their bearing and to get a nice orientation to that particular college. Students can meet faculty and other current students, sit in on a class, take tours. It's also a really great time to schedule a face-to-face meeting with someone in financial aid. You can make an appointment to discuss all of your, or students can make an appointment to discuss all of their particular financial situation. So it's a good time to do that face-to-face. Students will learn about support services, mental health services, tutoring, advising, writing centers, and any type of disability support services will be covered. And most of our schools have some type of dedicated channel on social media for admitted students, whether it's a closed Facebook group or a Tumblr or Instagram account for admitted students. This is really a good way for a student to connect virtually to other students and the institution before making that final decision. And it's a good place to ask questions and to just generally connect with other students. So biggest piece of advice here, 4 years is a long time for a student. It's a lot of money. It's a big time and financial commitment. Students should not be afraid to ask questions. Call the admissions office. Call any office on campus. Ask as many questions as they need to, and they shouldn't feel afraid or embarrassed to do this. It's a big decision. So admitted students, fears. I thought I questioned whether or not I should tackle this for this presentation, but I think it's important. I think that there's a lot of there are a lot of stereotypes out there, and there's a lot of misinformation. And just from my experience on the road, meeting prospective students from an admissions standpoint, students are afraid. They're afraid to get in. They're afraid that they'll get in and they won't stack up to the other students, and that they just won't be able to hack it. And the first myth that I kind of want to dispel is the rigorous curriculum and the art school stereotypes of all-nighters and highly competitive students. And unfortunately, these stereotypes have really endured. I am a graduate of perhaps one of the most perceived competitive art and design schools, and I am happy to say that I succeeded in a very balanced and healthy way, and I saw my counterparts and my friends do the same. It is a lot of work and it is rigorous, but it is completely doable, and I think some students like to brag that they've pulled an all-nighter. It kind of gives you some good street cred, but it's definitely not a way of life at an AICAD art and design school. So I think even worse of a stereotype is around the critique scenario at AICAD schools. Critiques are meant to be constructive, to inspire, to provide feedback and direction. Students, I would recommend, prospective students should go to an open house and sit in on a class and see what a critique is like at the college level firsthand. And it's truly not as scary as one would imagine. It really is a great experience, and it helps provide critical direction on a piece of work or a body of work from your peers, and it's a very supportive environment. Student support. So there are robust student services offered in terms of writing centers, student advisors. There's various types of mental health support and disability support. All of our schools, AICAD schools, are relatively small and have a high student-to-teacher ratio, which enables more opportunity for students to receive mentorship directly from faculty. So all of this creates a very supportive environment for students, especially students who are struggling to keep up with workload or just generally make that transition from high school to college, which can be daunting. There are a lot of services there to support that student. So students aren't just kind of thrown into this competitive sea. They're able to have some help through it. So campus culture, the studio. Student life really revolves around the studio at AICAD schools, although there are other avenues of student life. Students won't find a typical sports or sorority, fraternity culture at AICAD schools. And that said, there are fewer distractions because of that. A lot of the student life and excitement happens in the studio. Students tend to gather there, eat there. It's where their work happens and a lot of their play happens. There are definitely other avenues of student life, and to give you some examples, it's different across all schools, but many of our schools offer programs in community engagement for students to actually get out into the community, whether it be making art with local high school students or any type of community organization. There are organized clubs, usually student-led around common interests, cultural or religious, student-run galleries. Most of our schools offer athletic clubs, whether that's cycling, yoga, running. I know RISD has an ultimate Frisbee team. Students can explore all of these avenues on the school's website, and many of these student-led organizations have dedicated Facebook pages. So with just a little bit of time exploring and clicking through websites and Facebook pages, students can usually find what they're looking for. So I'm going to just take you into the next section of my slide here, and that's students have some fear and some trepidation around what they want to major in, and maybe they don't know what they want to major in. some of AICAD schools offer a foundation year, and some schools, students go right into their major. Ideally, a student would have selected their schools to apply to fully knowing what they were getting into if they were going to go into a foundation year versus going right into their major. And I know I've talked about this, Christy, in past webinars, but a foundation year is a full year. It's compulsory, so all freshmen start in a foundation year at some of our colleges, and it's a year dedicated to the foundations of art and design. So students will usually study two-dimensional design and three-dimensional design, and there will be...
Yes. They're trying to build
Yes.
their foundations because they may not have had the full spectrum at the school they were at, or they need to be get in a cohort. That makes sense.
Yeah, and the foundation year is great. Usually there's plenty of time for electives, so students can take 1 or 2 or 3 classes in different majors to get a sense of that major. And this helps students make an informed decision about what they would like to major in. And usually a student will declare their major at the end of that foundation year, and then they'll start in their major as a sophomore.
That's how I became an art history undergrad. I just want to throw that out there, and I'll be quiet.
And then some of our programs, some of our schools, students actually go right into their major. So they declare their major right on their college application, and not only are they applying to gain access or admittance into that particular school, but they're applying to get into that particular major, and then they would jump right into their major during that first year. So it's important to know if you're going into a foundation year or if your first year is your major. Students will likely know this before it's time to make their matriculation decision, but just something I wanted to point out. Okay, now for my sad slide. So things didn't go as planned. I know.
Wow.
So some students will get placed on a waiting list. Depending on the competitive nature of the program, or more specifically, the number of qualified admittable applicants versus the number of available seats in any given year, students might be placed on a waiting list. And this is a particularly difficult place to be as a student because you're kind of in limbo. And the waiting list could be very short, or it could be a long list with many tiers. So students should, if they are placed on a waiting list, they'll get a letter in the mail, and they should call immediately, call the admissions office to find out where they are on that list. And the admissions office should be relatively transparent about this. They don't want to get students' hopes up, so they should be able to tell students where they are on that list. And again, from my experience in admissions, the best thing that students can do who are placed on a waiting list is to continue to express their interest in the school. So call, write, harass, call again, email. In this case, the squeaky wheel truly does get the grease from my experience. Calling, emailing, as I said, can greatly influence a student's placement on that waiting list. So I would say don't be afraid to continue to contact the admissions office through this period. That said, students should definitely start considering their other options at this time. Even if they are admitted off the wait list, financial aid options might be scarce because it will be later into the academic year or even through the summer, and the financial aid resources may have entirely dried up by the time the student is offered a place off of the wait list. So it's definitely a good time to start looking at other options, and I'll go into the other options at the end of this slide. So not being granted admission and handling denials. Many of our schools are very open to giving feedback on admissions materials, and so I always advise students to call and find out what exactly was below expectations and what they could improve. This can definitely provide some much needed closure. And for many students, it can be a relief to find out that it was maybe a particularly competitive year, or their grades or test scores were slightly below average from the applying cohort. This can be a relief from the general feeling of being rejected and not stacking up. So I definitely recommend calling. And it's difficult for anyone to be rejected, and I'm sure art teachers, you see this all the time. Students should understand that admission to AICAD schools can sometimes be very competitive, and students should really just pat themselves on the back for completing a very rigorous admissions process in general. And in many cases, this is a student's first real taste of disappointment and uncertainty about their future. And so we realize that it's kind of a tender thing and a tender time. And when students call admissions, they're pretty well versed in handling this type of call and can usually make a student feel much better about their denial. So which may feel worse than not being granted admission is being accepted and not being able to afford it. Maybe not being offered a scholarship or the financial aid that was hoped for. This can be difficult. AICAD schools will never recommend that a student fully finance their entire education. All AICAD schools will advise that this is a very poor financial decision. Fully financing an AICAD education can cost well over $100,000, which would be a very big hole for a student to dig themselves out of over the course of a lifetime. And so we would never recommend it. And there are other quality options out there, and sometimes the path is winding. And people have lots of success attending their second choice, third choice, fourth choice schools, and it's not always a straight road to an education. And I just want to take you through some of the other options. So what's next? First choice, second choice, or third choice schools maybe haven't panned out. My recommendation would be to learn what the transfer requirements are at the first choice, second choice, third choice schools. Find out what kind of credits are transferable. Some students choose to enroll at a community college or local liberal arts college, and they're able to apply as a transfer to their first choice schools the following year with a significant portion of their liberal arts credits covered. So this can actually be a better financial reality as well. One thing to note here that's very important, most AICAD institutions will not take studio credits from other institutions unless the structure and rigor of the curriculum is similar, and in some cases identical. So I would advise against accumulating significant studio credits with the intent to transfer, but that being said, some time should be devoted to developing the portfolio and creating new portfolio pieces for the transfer application. And then related to this, if the GPA or test scores were a significant factor in admissions denial, students should improve grades during the first year at college and be sure to draw attention to the transcript improvement in the supporting application essay when they do apply as a transfer. And in my experience, a successful first year of college usually trumps a spotty high school transcript. So this is actually my last slide, and this is on a completely different note altogether, but I think it's important and timely to cover this, and it's something that should be considered when students are trying to decide on an institution, and that is career resources. And AICAD institutions offer a variety of career resources, and I'm going to take you through some of them. And actually this picture is of a biomedical art student at the Cleveland Institute of Art, and she's actually illustrating patient educational materials at an internship at a nearby hospital. So I thought that this was a nice example. Most AICAD schools offer significant career advisement and programming, internships that are integrated right into the curriculum and in some cases mandatory. Support with job placement after graduation, and a critical creative network of alumni across the world when they graduate, which is another huge resource. And there are abundant resources available at AICAD schools around career planning, internships, entrepreneurship, financial literacy, intellectual property law, marketing, and branding. And I just want to take you through a few examples of how these opportunities are being integrated right into the curriculum. So at Columbus College of Art and Design, they actually require a business and career prep course in the first year of the undergraduate curriculum. Oregon College of Art and Craft has multiple required courses throughout the undergraduate curriculum, including the Business of Art in the second year. The School of the Art Institute of Chicago has a required professional practice experience course for all third-year students. Moore College of Art and Design requires all students to complete an internship as part of their undergraduate degree, regardless of their major, so even fine arts majors. Art Center College of Design, Pratt Institute, and the University of the Arts all have incubators that support students in developing ideas into viable businesses. And Pratt Institute's Center for Career and Professional Development, they bring career advisors right into the classroom and offer a full schedule of guest speakers and recruiters who are invited to speak on careers. And Maryland Institute, yeah?
Leanne, I have to interrupt you. This is so wonderful. Are all those things on your website where you say you can look at what schools have as features or filter for something?
You know, when I was putting together this presentation, I was talking to AICAD's president about creating a page that listed a lot of these career resources. We have to think through a little bit more about how to do that because the resources are so vast and a lot of the programs and opportunities are across majors. So it would be a lot.
It's really cool. Maybe it's really just a snapshot. It's not so much a commitment, but it's really exciting. I apologize for interrupting you, but your list is just, it has the common language woven throughout it, and I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, and you know what? I'll stop there because that was a lot to go through. And that's just a smattering of examples.
Finish your list. I didn't mean to make you quit your list. You have to finish.
There was one more. The Maryland Institute College of Art is actually launching something called Upstart MICA, and it's a college-wide entrepreneurship initiative that allows students and recent graduates to launch startups and grow businesses. And that was my last example, and there are many more. That was just, I think, 6 or 7 that I listed there, and we have 42 member schools. And that's it. That's all I have for you. So questions?
Well, I want to express that we're so grateful to you. You represent 42 schools, and you actually represent, of those schools, so many of them are members, and so many of our own high school graduates go to those schools or aspire to or have applied. So it's so important that you guys have shared with us what's available to you all the time, and they just have to go to your website. You're going to be at our conference, and you're going to help present this same information in person so people can cultivate a relationship with your network. So I just want to, in closing, thank Leanne from AICAD. You've got to go to their website and take advantage of the resources. If you don't go, then you don't know. And if you know something that we don't know, propose it to us so that we can have something wonderful like we've done with AICAD and share this great resource with our members. Leanne, do you have any closing words before we sign off?
No, thanks everybody.
Okay, everyone, well, we hope you have a great spring, and make sure your students are ready. Play this webinar over and over for all your students, and have a great day.